All right, your challenge has something to do with taking action that's connected to shifting your perspective. So in the past, we're having the Ten of Wands reversed. So overburdened. In the past, you felt overburdened. You were not able to let go of some kind of burden. Currently, looks like you're a bit confused. And your challenge is the Ten of Cups, so emotional fulfillment. So to me, it looks like you're super confused and tired, and that's why you're emotionally drained. And your highest self is supposed to be like the King of Swords, so taking very analytical, very head over heart kind of like decisions and seeing, in a sense, the bigger picture, kind of looking at things intellectually. But currently you're super confused because your current issues talk about the Seven of Cups, even though they're reversed, which I usually associate with clarity, but still, maybe you're starting to gain clarity now. You're kind of starting to understand that it has something to do with taking action, changing your perspective on something. In your past, we were having the Judgment reverse, and Judgment oftentimes talks about changes as well. So in the reverse, it talks about, in the reverse, kind of like resistance to changes, self-doubt, like you're doubting yourself. You want to start something new, you want to take action, but you're doubting yourself, and probably it's kind of like, and this kind of like self-doubt and inaction is tiring you even more and draining you even more. But what essentially is the problem here, you need to look at the situation from a different perspective. Because your advice here is the Two of Pentacles, which is about juggling and reassessing something, because something is not really working out, which is why you're kind of like juggling. And this act of juggling by itself can really drain you, because it's the so-called mental load. And this could also have maybe something to do with finances, because Pentacles talk about finances. So if you're maybe overspending somewhere, which is kind of like stressing you out, maybe there's some kind of financial burden you are not able to let go of, or overcome, and maybe for some reason kind of like it's making me think about finances. So if there are any kind of like financial troubles you're dealing with right now, then the answer is essentially in re-evaluating something and looking from a different perspective with the Hanged Man. And the lesson for January for you is something to do with taking action, with communication. So if it is something financial, then probably you need to talk about it. Either talk about getting a pay raise, a promotion, reaching out for help from friends and family, something like that. Or maybe reassessing your budget. But there is something about changing your perspective and balancing things out. Because right now, you're tired, you're confused, and emotionally drained. And there's because you're kind of like, in a sense, refusing to change something. You think that you need like a new emotional beginning, like emotionally something new, but your desire is about letting go of something, of some kind of structure. but it's more about changing your perspective is what you're actually supposed to do. So, okay, let's see. That Two of Pentacles. It's Seven of Swords reversed, the Star reversed, and the Three of Wands reversed, which kind of tells me you need to understand where the kind of like the desperation is coming from. Kind of you gotta gain clarity of your situation here. And that is with the reassessment and re-evaluation, and the back of the deck card is the Four of Pentacles, which talks about things like frugality and stability. So I kind of have a feeling this has something to do with finances. Basically, you need to reassess your budget, essentially, because with that Seven of Swords reversed and Star reversed and Three of Wands reversed, it kind of tells me that the situation is not as bad as you think. You're just looking over something. Okay, the Eight of Wands. It looks like the environment that you're in is actually the cause of your problems, because I'm seeing we're having King of Swords, Four of Wands, and Four of Swords reversed. King of Swords is King of Swords reversed can be quite a nasty energy. It's either your environment or maybe a person, a specific person. But Four of Wands kind of talks about stability. It looks like to me that the communication or the action that is the lesson is about some kind of transition. Either a transition away from a person or from an environment. You're basically comfortable in something that's not good for you. Something that is really draining you, confusing you, and burdening you, but you're not sure whether changing that is the right move. But to me, this tells me that it is, because Four of Wands reversed actually talks about transitions. So your lesson for January is actually making some kind of transition from a situation environment that is draining you. Like this situation environment or even a person used to be your stability, but that's no longer the case. And your lesson for January is gaining clarity over the situation, reassessing it, and making the necessary transitions. And it's connected with a change of perspective, because your desire is the Hierophant reverse, which is letting go of some kind of commitment, some kind of structures, and your highest good is the King of Swords, which is intellectual power. So you actually possess the necessary knowledge and the necessary intellect to actually solve this, because the problem is actually mental here. It's not necessarily actually physical or emotional. It's a mental one. It's a mental shift that you're supposed to do here. Okay, let's see the Hanged Man. Yes, it's making a decision to change something. Breaking a cycle of disharmony, basically. Because currently you're stuck into something that is Ten of Cups reversed. And the overall reading is about changing your perspective, and the clarifying cards even tell me that it's about making a plan, making a decision to break some kind of cycle that is making you miserable. Ten of Cups reversed also talks about relationships, especially when it comes to family. So there's some kind of breakdown of communication, of relationships, and you also had the Four of Wands reversed, which can also talk about marriage, about families. So you're asked here to reassess whatever this emotional situation is, and basically recognize that there's some kind of harmful cycle you're stuck in, and you're kind of like expected to make a decision, make a change to break this cycle, because it seems like it's something you have been repeating. This might have been some kind of family pattern from the past that's kind of plaguing you since childhood. Let's see, the Judgment reversed. Because Judgment is kind of like raising the dead. Yeah. The Hanged Man, and the overall is the Hanged Man. This could be some kind of family pattern, maybe, where you're just putting up with a miserable situation and you're not letting it go. You're unable to move on, but deep down inside, in your heart of hearts, you, I think, already know that you have to let this go. That you have to basically Six of Swords out of it. But currently you're kind of like repeating that cycle, because it looks like it's something you are used to from your childhood. There might have been maybe a dysfunctional family pattern where people were putting up with toxic situations because family. But here you were asked to look at it real close from a different perspective, juggle this idea about putting up with miserable situations, and do you really need to? That is what this entire reading looks to me, that you're asked to look at this honestly and figure out if this situation is really what you need to, because even your conscience is telling you a new emotional beginning is what you should be doing. And what your soul really wants is to let go of some kind of commitment. And in this month, it's basically about you taking action or communicating it, or taking first steps already on essentially this new beginning, in a sense, a new emotional beginning. Let's actually clarify these cards. So this is some kind of old pattern from childhood you're trying to break, and kind of mentally already know that. Holding on to something. So Seven of Pentacles, that's looking at the bigger picture, at the long term. The Lover's choice, long-term choice. We're having that King of Swords reversed again. The King of Swords can be interpreted here in a lot of ways, but I think this is something to do with abuse and misuse of power and kind of manipulations, because the entire reading is telling me there's some kind of relationship issue, which might have something to do with finances as well. And you're kind of like asked to think about this in the long term and make a choice thinking about yourself in the long term. So this is also about creating stability, because Four of Pentacles is also about that. So something is not stable here. It's quite literally draining you emotionally. Let's see. Oracles for advice. So that situation that's tiring you out, look at it honestly. Big picture thinking, Pleiades, energy, visionary, inspired. So big picture, yeah, you got the love, Hadarian energy, codependency, boundaries. So yeah, there you have to look at this challenge in the very long term, in the big picture, because codependency seems to be a theme here, definitely. That's why you need to think about this in the long term, because you cannot sustain codependent relationships without boundaries. Basically, relationships without boundaries, you can't have them in the long term. It's just going to be 10 of Cups reversed always. So be very, very careful with those kinds. Happiness is my birthright, and obstacles are detours in the right direction. So yeah, you're allowed to be happy, you're allowed to look out for your own interests, and you're kind of called here to look out for your own interests, because the current situation is not good. You just have to realize it, you have to see it, and this obstacle it's just that, it's an obstacle in the right direction, because you need to learn from this situation so your future can be better. So basically you're gaining very valuable life experience when it comes to relationships and emotional fulfillment. So that is your task for January 2022.